For years, one question has followed MMA. Are UFC fighters underpaid? Fans debate it constantly. Fighters bring it up. And Jake Paul has built a large part of his combat sports identity around that exact criticism. And now that conversation has taken a new turn. Most Valuable Promotions, founded by Jake Paul, has merged with the Professional Fighters League. And this isn't just another small promotion trying to survive alongside the UFC. The people behind this merger are openly talking about building a real alternative. But that raises a bigger question. If the UFC model is so bad for fighters, why has it worked for so long? And more importantly, can MVP and PFL actually build something better without collapsing financially? Let's start with the two companies. MVP, or Most Valuable Promotions, was built by Jake Paul and Nikisa Bidarian. It is primarily a boxing promotion, but its real strength is modern promotion, social media, storytelling, attention, and turning fighters into personalities rather than just names on a card.
Shows the power of manifestation, believing in yourself. And so to all the boxers, to all the promoters, to all the world out there, have a dream and chase it, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do anything.
Amanda Serrano is a good example. MVP didn't just promote her fights, they promoted her story, her rivalries, and the event as a whole. That's very different from traditional combat sports promotion. Then there's the PFL. The Professional Fighters League tried to break the UFC model with a season format, regular season, playoffs, and $1 million championship prize. It was ambitious, but it ran into a familiar problem in MMA. People didn't always care enough. Good fighters aren't enough. You need stars, you need stories, you need attention. And that's where MVP potentially changes everything. Because MVP brings promotion, media reach, and Jake Paul's audience. The idea behind the merger is simple. Combine PFL's MMA structure with MVP's promotional machine. But the biggest difference between this new project and the UFC is fighter pay. PFL has already experimented with a more fighter-friendly model, including announcing a 50% revenue share for its pay-per-view superfight division. That stands in contrast to the UFC, where leaked figures from legal cases suggest fighters historically receive around 16 to 20% of revenue, far below major leagues like NBA or the NFL. Now, there are important caveats. MMA isn't a traditional team sport. The UFC has far more fighters per event and massive costs, production, travel, marketing, development, and global operations. And the UFC leadership argues fighter pay has increased significantly over time.
Fighter comp has gone through the roof over the last 5 years since the sale. And it's going to continue to go up.
So it's not as simple as saying UFC makes billions, so fighters should get half. But the criticism still exists, because at the core, fighters are the product. And when a company generates record revenue while paying a relatively small share to the athletes, people will question the system.
Every time somebody comes out and says, oh, you don't pay your fighters, you don't pay your fighters. I could come out and do this every fuck. I'm not. I don't give a shit. You don't like the way we pay our fighters? Too fucking bad. Go start another MMA organization and you go fucking figure out how to do it. And you can pay them $10 million a fight, $30 million a fight, whatever you want to do. We run a business. We've been very good at it. Not only do we run the business, we continue to grow the sport and take everybody along with us, you know?
This is exactly where MVP and PFL are trying to compete. Their argument is, what if fighters were paid more, promoted better, and given a share of the value they create?
So to our fighters at MVP and PFL, things just got a whole lot bigger. And to any other fighters in any combat sports organizations out there, you're gonna wanna fight out of your contracts and come join the biggest, the best, the highest paying, and the most viewed organization out there, which is MVP.
On paper, that sounds like a strong alternative. Complicated. See, most have failed, which is why the real issue here isn't just fighter pay, it's economics. Because the uncomfortable truth is, the UFC model works, not perfectly, not and consistent stars. And now, under TKO, UFC's revenue has reached over $1.5 billion annually, while expanding into things like UFC BJJ, Power Slap, and Zuffa boxing. It's no longer just an MMA promotion. it's a combat sports ecosystem. And that makes the challenge for MVP and PFL much harder, because they aren't just competing with a fight company, they're competing with an entire machine. And there's another problem. Even if MVP pays fighters more, that money has to come from somewhere. Higher fighter pay only works if revenue matches it. And that's the biggest question. Can MVP actually generate enough consistent income to sustain its model? Jake Paul can bring attention, that's not in doubt. But attention doesn't require equal long-term profitability. At some point, the numbers have to work. There's also a competitive reality that can't be ignored. The UFC still has the best fighters in the world competing against each other. And for the most elite fighters, it's not just about the money, it's about legacy, belts, rankings, being considered the best.
I like to be UFC champion, and I just want to defend my belt, and I still enjoy on this sport,
Right now, and that might be its strongest advantage, not pay, relevance. So can MVP and PFL actually challenge the UFC? Honestly, it's too early to say, but the merger is still important, because each side brings something the other needs. PFL brings structure, fighters, and the MFA infrastructure. MVP brings promotion, storytelling, and attention. If they combine that effectively, they could become a legitimate number 2 promotion. And that alone would change MMA. Because even if they don't beat the UFC, they could force you to respond. Imagine fighters having real alternatives. One offer from the UFC, another offering more money, more branding control, and revenue share. That creates leverage, and leverage changes everything. But there's also the opposite possibility. MVP could spend heavily trying to compete, fail to scale revenue, and eventually be forced to adapt a model closer to the UFC. And if that happens, it would suggest something important. Maybe the UFC's system isn't just dominant. Maybe it's the only one that has proven it can actually sustain a global MMA at scale. And that's why the story is bigger than Jake Paul versus Dana White. It's a real test. A test of whether a fighter-friendly MMA promotion can survive in a brutal business environment. If it works, it could reshape the sport. If it fails, it strengthens the UFC's position even further. And either way, for the first time in a long time, the UFC might actually have a real competition watching from behind it. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. It really helps us out. And let us know in the comments what video you'd like to see next.